Hello everybody. That's all I got. Hello everybody. Welcome to our coverage of the Dortmund Sparkassen chess meeting 2017. The most traditional German super tournament. Also the scene of my best and worst tournament. Best tournament in 2008, worst tournament in 2012. This year we have the 2017 edition. And there's a bunch of narratives around it, but of course the big one is, will good old Vladimir Kramnik manage to win 10 rating points, overtake Magnus Carlsen in the world rankings? Today in the first round he's facing his compatriot Fedoseev. I don't know if they do this on purpose. In some tournaments they do, that the countrymen face each other in the first round, so there's no shenanigans later on. I don't think it matters. In such a tournament there wouldn't be any shenanigans, and people, just because they share the same nationality, won't play any less hard against each other. But that system, if it is a system, brings us the game Nisipianu against Bluebaum. Nisipianu, the number one in the German rating list. Bluebaum, I believe currently, I'll pretend like I don't know exactly, currently number 3, Georg Meyer 2644. Bluebaum 2642, yours truly 2640. That's why I'm keeping a very close eye on all these proceedings. Then we have some more surprising participants. Is that rude to say? No, I don't think so. Wang Yue. What has Wang Yue been up to? Like 10 years ago, Wang Yue was a rock star of chess, never losing any games. He had like an 80 game, whatever, unbeaten streak. Don't look that up, it's probably not true. But he did not lose many games in a row. So Wang Yue has been around for a long time, but he hasn't been very active recently. As far as I know, in the year 2017, he's only played like 7 draws in the Chinese league. Hasn't played other than that. While in 2016, he played in the Olympiad, didn't do well, like lost 2 games for China. And in general, it's been quiet around Wang Yue. I remember the good old days when I was still a smoker, in the good old days. And Wang Yue and me would be playing the World Cup, and our opponents would think. And we would like spend most of the time in the smoker's lounge. Which they call the smoker's lounge. Well, that was really a bathroom. And yeah, I was a fan of the guy. But it's a surprising invite, because he hasn't been so active. 2699, of course, a very respectable rating, but not the highest rating out there. One theory that I've heard is that Dortmund has a partner city called Xi'an. Sorry if I bungled the pronunciation of that one. And Wang Yue hails from that region, like 600 kilometers from Xi'an. That's what Colin, who does write all of our great articles and is much better informed than me on chess stuff normally, told me. Anyway, it's gonna be interesting to see Wang Yue in this tournament. Then we do have Mr. Dmitry Andreikin. Always been a very interesting player. One of these Russian players that, yeah, don't necessarily get that many chances, but always been a very strong player with a very particular style. Like, not so much of a mainline openings player, but very... I find it hard to say. He's not exactly tactical, but a very gifted maneuvering player, slightly offbeat positions. Doesn't necessarily play sharply, but has a very unique style. And we'll keep an eye on how things go for him. Certainly an interesting player to watch. Recently been losing some rating. I think he had some tough events as well. Like Reykjavik Open he didn't do well. European Championship he didn't do well. Some things did not go his way. But yeah, interesting to see Andreikin around as well. Fedoseev had a good year, crossed 2700. Young guy, how old is Fedoseev? 22? I should know these things, but as usual, I'm just guessing. And currently one of the Russian players on the rise. So they have 3 Russians in this tournament, which I believe is even called Vladimir Kramnik Tournament. They call it Kramnik Tournament these days. Kramnik won it 10 times. That hasn't won for a while, like in like 7 years. So he's going to be eager, because in order to win all this rating, to catch Magnus, he would probably have to win the tournament. And I'm reading some stats in the chat here. Evans Gamba is telling me, Jan, if Kramnik scores +4, he will have 0.2 elo more than Magnus and will be number 1. Is that fair? Since Magnus was lost 0.4 points at the end of last month? I don't know, I can't do math, but +4 with only 7 rounds is, of course, a big undertaking in such a field. I would say Kramnik is... Well, he has to be an underdog to score that. That would be 5.5 out of 7. But you never know. We'll keep an eye on it. And let's talk about my boy Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. Had a great year last year where he won Dortmund, amongst other things. Also put together a little winning streak or non-losing streak of his own. But ever since he worked on Team Magnus for the World Championship, it seems like he's lost his step a little bit. Not much, like he's still 2.791, which is not terrible. But yeah, didn't have a great half year early in 2017. Did well in the recent Grand Prix though, Paris and Leuven. So Maxime and Kramnik, I don't think I'm telling any tales out of school there. Of course, the two top favorites to win this tournament. Last but not least, Radek Wojtaszek. Former teammate of mine when we both used to play for the Hamburg Chess Club. Those were the good old days. I was higher rated than Radek, played board 1, he was board 2. But times have changed just a little bit. He has worked a lot with Vichy Anand and became a tremendous open specialist in his own right. Radek Wojtaszek, 2.736, has not broken through to the absolute world elite. Elite or elite? I think you can say both. But he's established himself as a world-class player. Played in Vachier-Lagrave and in Shamkir earlier this year already. And Radek, I am always very interested in his games, because I'm a bit of a theory buff myself. And following Radek's games, you can always learn a ton. With both colors, really. He's extremely well prepared. Against 1d4, 1e4, and especially with the white pieces for non-1e4 players like myself. There is always a lot that can be seen ideas-wise in Radek's games. Still, this is the field. Surprising composition. 2 German guys. Of course, this tournament is held in Germany. I commend that. Kramnik, of course, this is pretty much his tournament. But yeah, then some guys you would not necessarily expect, even though it has to be said, well, MVL, top 10 player, last year's winner. And it has to be said that Fedoseev did qualify by winning the Aeroflot Open. They always have the Aeroflot Open winner in the field. Therefore, what am I saying by saying some guys you don't expect? Vachier, Andreikin, Wojtaszek, all established players. But yeah, it's gonna be a super tournament with not your regular super tournament regulars. Not quite sure if they wanted a Chinese guy and then they realized, they're all playing in Danzhou, the Weiyis of the world, or if they thought Andreikin is a great player, he doesn't get enough chances, let's have him in. Radek Wojtaszek, also very interesting player. And not only used to be my teammate, I should say, but still is my teammate in Baden-Baden. Radek. I feel like, of course, Kramnik and MVL big favorites, but dark horse Radek with his preparation in such a more mixed field can be very, very dangerous. Especially since the pairings. In Dortmund the pairings are always announced way in advance, like 2 months before. So preparation can play a major role because you have like a long time to prepare individually for every opponent. The schedule is also not very stressful. It's 7 rounds and 2 rest days during these 7 rounds. Which, yeah, gives you, as the word rest day probably indicates, enough rest. And therefore, opening preparation and fitness and being on point against each particular opponent really does matter. What else can I tell you? That's pretty much everything I had. Is anybody watching this? Is the stream okay? I'm reading Bluebomb is gonna be punching back. I'm not so sure. Having played the role of punching back myself in 2 Dortmund tournaments, normally if you can nail the start and catch some confidence for guys of Bluebomb's level who has some experience in these super tournaments and is very young, 20 years old, then you can do quite well in these tournaments. When it gets tough is you lose a game or 2 and people start circling your game out on the calendar. But I'm not sure. I don't think he's going to be a punching bag. Of course, he's a favorite to score a minus score. Like -1 or -2 would be more normal to me than like something very serious. As I said, I played there twice. Once I scored 4 out of 7, was very good. Once I scored 1.5 out of 9, was less good. These things can go either way, depending on, yeah, your start, how you feel during the tournament, how well you did your homework, all kinds of stuff. But I would be surprised if Bluebaum does too badly. Especially since it's not his first super tournament. He's played in a bunch of the Baden-Badens. Did he play in Dortmund? I should know. I don't know. But he has some experience for sure. Stream's fine, I'm reading. Beautiful. So let's talk about what we shall do here. Today it's gonna be me, myself and I, and not even until the very end. It's gonna be a bit of commentarios interruptus because I have to leave. I have a good reason though. It's my dad's 70th birthday party. And I felt that might be even more important than Dortmund round 1 time scrambles. However, I will be here with you all day tomorrow. Today's show, as you can probably see, and tomorrow's show will be free because you're just dealing with me. But then from, I believe Monday is a rest day. From Tuesday on, I'll be joined by my old partner in crime, Lawrence Trent. We will also try to have, well, we won't try, I'm pretty sure we'll get him, the occasional outing by Super Grandmaster Peter Svidler joining us via Skype. And the show will be premium from Tuesday on. So if you're not premium yet, you can watch me today for free. Oh boy, this sounds like I'm a cam girl. I got a new haircut, so I'm on my way. But yeah, today and tomorrow the show will be free. Then go premium to watch the rest. You get access to all these videos. I think we have a mug promotion as well. If you get a yearly membership, yearly premium membership, you get one of these very exciting mugs signed by whoever you want it to be signed. I have no idea whose signature that is, but I'll sign them if I have to. So yeah, what could be more exciting? As long as the supplies last. Speaking of as long as the supplies last, how long should my voice last until this tournament starts? I've been informed they're gonna start around 3:30. In Dortmund they like taking their time introducing each player individually, giving a little speech. So especially for the first round, it's not clear if things will be 100% on time. We don't have any video feed from over there. Generally in Dortmund they like people to show up, watch the action live. Used to be in this old theater where I was playing. I think they've moved locations by now. What I'm saying is, it should start soonish. I'm reading some questions about Lawrence's streak, and believe you me, I've been following this closely. I'm sure once Lawrence joins me on Tuesday, we can discuss it in great detail. Lawrence playing this Grandmaster tournament in Lüneburg, nearby Hamburg. I went there the first day, won the Blitz tournament, tried to break his spirits a little already. And Lawrence started with 0 out of 5 in that tournament. But since then, he's been doing well, beating up on the women and children, defeating Sarah Holt, Elisabeth Pitts and Mats Hansen, I believe, to make a comeback. And he's now on 3 out of 8, which looks a lot better than 0 out of 5. And Evans Gambit is asking, how far is Dortmund from Hamburg? It's not that far, it's like 300 kilometers maybe? Such things can be found out with today's wonderful technology. I would say it's like 300 kilometers. I know it's a 2.5-hour train ride. I've been to Dortmund plenty. It's an underrated city. It's beautiful. I quite like it there. Dortmund. This is the show. Just me Googling stuff on my phone. Which doesn't seem to be online. Come on. You can do it, Google Maps. No internet in here? That would be bad news for the show. Oh, some progress. 284 kilometers. So 300 wasn't that far off. I'm a big expert on German geography. Evans Gambit says 345.5. I don't know, it says 284 from my location. So Maybe you checked a different spot in the Hamburg area. Some discussion about Andrejkin, and I believe Colin touched on this in his preview, that Andrejkin has been a little isolated. Maybe by choice, maybe because of his political views. He doesn't live in Moscow. But where is he? Where is he based? I don't even know. Samara? I'm not sure, but I do know that he doesn't live in Moscow and he normally works by himself, doesn't have a big team of assistants, coaches, which can be a good thing for some people. Of course, it does help after reaching a certain level to get some help there. And I'm not sure, I can't confirm or deny any of these theories, but it's very possible that he's not high in the chain of Russian support system. We'll ask Peter Svidler. I think I asked him about Andrejkin. We talked about him on the air some other time, maybe during Vike. And I mainly recall the Cliff's notes. Interesting guy, nice family, sticks to himself. And I can't say I'm very familiar with him. I did see him during the World Rapid with his wife and their kid, and they seem to be having a jolly old time. That much I can say. And I've mentioned it earlier, I quite like his chess style because it's hard to, put into words. He's a very flexible, interesting positional player. Not especially a firebrand where, there the board is burning at all times. So today I think I predicted a draw in Vachier Andrejkin, but he has an interesting maneuvering style and I quite enjoy watching his games. Let's go through my predictions, which I tweeted out earlier. I believe that Kramnik will win with white against Fedoseev. Of course, a draw is probably a slightly higher probability bet, but Fedoseev not so experienced in super tournaments with the bright Dortmund lights. And facing very experienced Kramnik with the black pieces, I feel this is a good spot for Kramnik. MVL against Wojtaszek. Truth is, I've played 13 games, and out of these 13 games, 11 have been drawn. MVL 1-1 and Wojtaszek 1-1, so very even matchup. I still predicted 1-0 because I'm a sucker for the stronger player with the white pieces. Once again, draw might be a little more likely. Radek always extremely well prepared. Not clear if MVL will test him in 1e4, when we could expect the Najdorf or a classical Spanish. Both have been played by Wojtaszek regularly. But I'm curious about this one. Vachier Andrejkin, as I said, I believe a draw is likely. And Anisipiano Bluebaum, I also believe a draw is likely. Because here, I'm going to switch my argument around a little. But Bluebaum is a very good theoretician. He's known this pairing forever. He's had time to prepare. And I'm not sure if Dieter will be able to create enough play to put pressure here with the white pieces. Of course, I'm normally wrong about every single prediction. So get your money in on whatever the opposite is of what I said. But that's what I'm saying. Anisipiano Bluebaum draw, Vachier Andrejkin draw, Kramnik Fedoseev 1-0, and MVL Wojtaszek 1-0. What's my phone doing? It's trying to guide me to Dortmund now? I'm not going. So I think I've mentioned it today. I'm not sure when they'll start. I'm expecting them to start soon. I'll be here until close to 6, so I'm expecting for the first 2.5 hours. Then I will leave you all alone in the dramatic time travel fights that ensue. But let's face it, I'm only useful in the opening anyway. So we'll talk you through that. Then tomorrow I'll be here all day. Who needs weekends? Then Monday is a rest day in Dortmund. And from Tuesday on, it will be a premium show with yours truly, Lawrence Trent, Peter Svidler, wisdom, punchlines, haircuts. Finding out the truth about Lawrence's appearance during the Lüneburg, I don't know what's called, the Lüneburg Grandmaster tournament. If he's given up on pursuing the Grandmaster title, all the good stuff. For now, since I don't have any visual confirmation, I do have a live BGM, which I hope works. We're stuck here, waiting for the games to begin. Ask me stuff or tell me stuff. Tell me useful information in the chat, which I am starting to read right now. Exxon Sloofy is saying, when the match start? I do not know, but I was told around 3:30, so I expect 4 minutes ago. Johan Villamubius says, hi all. Hi, Johan Villamubius. James Maskell is saying, good to hear a rest day Monday, working that afternoon and would have missed that round. Must be nice to only work Monday afternoon and you can fit in everything else. Is it like a 4-hour work week Tim Ferriss situation? What's going on there, James Maskell? What do you do for a living? Pillsbury is asking, when do the games begin? I do not know, but I was told at 3:30, so that's 5 minutes ago. Therefore, I expect soon. Dactyl TLF asks, when did it become premium only? It becomes premium only on Tuesday. So today it's a free show with just me. Then tomorrow it's a free show with just me. And then they add some people and they made it premium. Food for thought for me. But yeah, first 2 rounds are free. Use your chance to go premium during these first 2 rounds. Grab one of these exciting signed mugs and follow all the action with Svidler and Trent from Tuesday on. Christopher 3 writes something in a language I do not speak. Sorry, Christopher 3. Please stick to English. James Maskell says he does work proper hours. Probably just some overtime there on Monday afternoon. Sorry, man. Taste Your Loss asked if there is any anti-cheat delay. I recall they were doing this in the past. I haven't heard anything about it this year. But since my phone is doing things, maybe people are telling me about it, or they're telling me about, oh no, this is a different thing. Maybe it's still trying to figure out the way to Dortmund. No, this is a group chat. You guys don't want to know. And I do hear that, yeah, there is a delayed feed that has been their MO in the past. Now, what I do not know, since they told me that it would start at 3:30. Does that include the 50 minutes delay? Or will they really start at 3:30 and then we have to wait for another 50 minutes until we get the feed? I do not know, but that does not stop Patrick Izzo58 from asking, Jan, when do the games begin? LOL. The games began, I'm assuming, at 3:30, but I do not have any live PGN here yet. And Patrick Izzo58 is asking, Jan, quand est-ce que la partie de Maxime commence? LOL. It's good that you add the LOL, else I would, not have understood that you asked the same thing in French. Je ne sais pas à quelle heure la partie de MVL commence, mais je crois que au 3:30. Mais je ne sais pas. Felix50 asked, where is a good chess pub in Dortmund? I do not know. Do they have a chess pub in Dortmund? I've never been to a chess pub over there. And Perpetual Stalemate points out that Lawrence is the premium broadcaster, guys. I do get that impression too from, let's make Jan free first 2 rounds. But then we have Lawrence. Premium, boom. But I'll be part of the premium show. Sometimes it's good enough to be a part of something people have to pay for. Speaking of being a part of something, have you seen my 4-part opus on what to do against 1d4? It's finally finished. And you should check it out. It was a lot of work. And Sopiko Gurumishvili was just here in the studio, recorded a series for how to play the Scotch with the white pieces. Horrible opening, the Scotch, but Sopiko will convince all of us that this is interesting. And sometimes she gets some tips from Anish Giri, who has employed the Scotch himself. He's one of the world's best theoreticians. I hope that will come out soon. Let's see. Sorry for all this foaming around. I'm just checking if I get updates here on when this will start, if there's delay, all the good stuff. Now, you could say, why didn't you check this before the round? And I would have no good answer. Chess and Strategy is complimenting me on my French. No, I'm sorry. I learned French for many years in school. Many years means 3, but I'm terrible at it. Like, I never got the hang of understanding stuff. Zangwik T asks, when does the games start, Jan? I do not know. I've been told that the games start at 3:30. And there is a possibility that they do implement their 50 minutes delay in the transmission, which they typically do in Dortmund, because they do believe that it lessens the chances of cheating, I would guess. Or because they want people to go there if they want to see the games really live. So by that math, it would mean that the games start at 3:45. But I'm not sure I will have new answers to that question. So trust me that I will keep you updated should I learn anything new. Rasmus Petersen 94 is saying, with Lawrence's recent slump, can you guarantee people don't get a mug signed by him? I'll tell you what, Rasmus Petersen 94, you go premium now and you can choose by whoever enters this Hamburg office you want your mug signed. I can promise you, you are not getting a Lawrence Trent mug if you don't want one, even though I'm sure he has many a mug shot out there. Therefore, he might be a bit of a specialist on that topic. James Maskell keeps pointing out that Dortmund has had this 15-minute thing for years, and Eskimo is asking, do we have live pictures from Dortmund? We do not. Traditionally, Dortmund, they have their own live commentary on site, and they want people to go there and watch the players in action. This is just a little Chess24 production, where they decided, Jan doesn't have a life, let's put him here over the weekend. He can drink coffee and talk nonsense and wait until the games start. Sad but true. Zangikt asks if it's because of Kotaini or whoever his name was. No, I don't think Kotaini has anything to do with the Dortmund cheating regulations. I think they've had this 15-minute delay in place for a long time. My theory, but I don't know, you would have to ask them, is that they want to encourage people to come there and watch it live, and they give you a little bonus if you go there live and they don't want it to be out there on the internet directly. Still many discussions about my French. Actually, I have a running discussion with a friend of mine that I should do one whole Banter Blitz show in French, which would be terrible because my vocabulary is literally maybe 80 words, maybe 100 words. But yeah, he's trying to convince me to do it because Harald Schmidt once did a whole show in French. But his French, Harald Schmidt's French, is much better than mine. So I don't think it can happen. But we'll find out. And I'm seeing that the games have actually lifted off, if I can trust this picture I see here. Therefore, I'm expecting that once we made it past the 15 minutes delay, which should be any minute, we can watch the excitement that is, spoiler alert, don't use this for cheating, there is a Petrov in the Vachier-Lagrave game. Hipa says, ah oui, un Banter Blitz en français. Mais le problème est que je ne peux pas parler. Je ne peux pas dire... qu'est-ce que c'est? Le fou? Roi? La dame? Cheval? Tour? Are those the pieces? That's what I'm just trying to do. I'm not sure I can name all the pieces in French, as Evans Gambit is asking. How do you call pawns in French? I don't know what pawns are called. So how many languages can I name all pieces? I would guess German, English, Spanish, probably Dutch. Is that it? That might be it. I have to learn in Norwegian. Dutch I can do. Pion, tour. Oh, maybe I can't do Dutch. Springer, loper, koning, dame. Maybe I can't do Dutch. And James Maskell saying, ironic that the Chinese player is playing white in the Petrov. It is a bit surprising indeed. I'm hoping my little live feed here will eventually give me moves, else we'll just sit here. Part, not Springer. Ah yeah, of course I know that. It witte part. See, that's the thing with Dutch. Normally if you use a German word and pronounce it weirdly, you'll be fine. But some words are differently. But part I do know. And Chessbox is asking, when will the games update on Chess24? I am expecting the games to update any minute, and there will be a 15-minute delay. Therefore, under the assumption that I'm still operating under, that the game started around 3:30, should be any minute. If not, we will sit here and nervously text the tech people. What's up with the live PGN? Do we get any moves? Do we not? Faggy says, I can't see the moves. I'm with you, Faggy. I can't see the moves either. You must be patient. I know it's tough because we want to see the moves. We want to see the Petrov in Vachier and Drakin, but we can't see them yet. By the way, I have this new feature. I'm not sure if it works, but it would be nice if it did work. That whenever I'm doing random things on the board here, which I made up myself, there will be this little green light. Well, if it's the real game, there will be no green light. I'm not sure it's going to work with the live games, but it would be good, because sometimes it's confusing. When is this idiot analyzing and when is it the position between the players? I personally don't like having a little analysis board somewhere. I find that confusing too. So it would be nice if we can have some little signal telling us what's going on. And I am well aware that Game of Thrones comes out tomorrow. Exciting! Season 7. What will happen? Will Dany make it past the narrow sea? What about this Night King dude? I still have a feeling George R.R. might just make the Night King win, sit on the Iron Throne, and then say, that's it. But I am very excited. My theory is that in the end, you need, what do you need? Like Targaryen blood to ride these dragons? We're gonna find out that Jon Snow, R plus L equals J, all that stuff, can ride a dragon. Dany, of course, we've already seen. And the little man, Tyrion Lannister, can also ride a dragon, because he's not really a Lannister, he's a Targaryen. Those are my theories. Petar Miskovic is pointing out that Kramnik already won his game. I don't know. And I like that I get questions that I've answered already 15 times every minute, but I can, of course, keep saying this because people keep joining the show. We have no games yet. Chessbox is asking why you have no parter for the commentary. And it's just me all by myself today, Chessbox, today and tomorrow. But then, starting from round 3, I will have 2 partners. Lawrence Trent, who is still finishing his Grandmaster tournament in Lüneburg, and Peter Svidler will hopefully join us via Skype once in a while. So yeah, you just have to bear with me today. The good news is I'm free. The show will start premium on Tuesday. And even free if we don't get any moves. It's just gonna be me talking about nothing, which I'm not sure I wouldn't enjoy it if I was you. Let me get on my phone. This is the show. I'm being told, don't panic, here come the moves. And here they are indeed. Wow. Nisi, Piano, Bluebaum are playing the Verisov, which I covered in my series, so I know this quite well. I like calling it the very soft, because this move just looks so weird to me. Knight c3, d5. You're blocking your own c-pawn, but it has become quite topical. Both the London system and the Verisov recently. And Blue Baum, who, as I said, is a good theoretician, goes for one of the principal lines. He takes on d4. Here you have to know, watch my series, you just have to know this doesn't quite work, even though it looks interesting. But after queen a5 check, black is okay. Therefore, you have time to throw in this little exchange, and now you go a6, stopping any knight b5 or bishop b5 shenanigans. That's also what I recommended. And after knight to f3, I believe I gave knight to c6 as the most solid. The reason that you start with c takes d4 is after a6, d takes c5 is a bit of a headache, so you don't want to deal with that. Therefore, Blue Baum is playing how I would have played as well. Which might be a good thing or a bad thing. And this is confusing, because on this picture that I saw, it looked like Vachier and Andreikin was Petrov. But this opening actually is much more in line with Vachier's typical opening repertoire. He's not normally a 1e4 player. And d4, d5, c4, d takes c4 is something I've seen Andreikin employ. Recently, Fabiano Caruana has done this quite a bit. But normally was just suffering in some slightly worse endgames in these knight f3, knight f6, e3, e6, bishop c4, c5, castles. All of this I'm making up dc5 situations. Or b3. Those are the solid lines that white can play. We'll see what Andreikin has in mind. And what Vachier has in mind, if Vachier will find strength, pushes e-pawn all the way to e4. Which used to be the topical move like a year or two ago, but it seems like the top guys have gone back to e3 or knight f3 that often transpose into each other. I once again like to point out our new feature that when the system thinks this is the position that's actually on the board, no little dot. Well, then when I make my own analysis move, little dot. So green dot says Jan making up stuff, quote unquote analysis. And no green dot says board position. Let's get to Vladimir Kramnik, the world number 2. And he's doing another line that I knew was gonna make a comeback and is making a comeback. I'll explain why in a second. It is the line that Bobby Fischer used to enjoy playing against the Caro-Kann. I'm not sure if it has a name. The exchange variation is what I call it. With e takes d, c takes d, bishop d3, knight c6 and c3. The reason this was due to make a comeback is that people are so committed to playing all these London system positions these days. And here, whenever you go c, d, e, d, you see that we have a very, very similar setup to the one in the game used by Kramnik. And therefore, Kramnik, who also played the London system, he must have come to the conclusion, if I can get the structure where black is already committed to quote-unquote cd4, ed4, then why not employ it against the Caro-Kann as well? So people started seeing these positions with fresh eyes. And I'm not surprised they're making a comeback, because there's also been one idea that I was unaware of that I've seen recently. The game Jaime Santos against Vachier-Lagrave that looked quite strong to me. I always thought this queen c7 was a good reply. Covering the f4 square, stopping bishop f4, knight to e2, bishop to g4. This is a known line. Well, yeah, bishop f4 is not very good, f3 is not very good. But Jaime Santos, he played castles, e6, and now an idea I was unaware of, queen to e1. And this is surprisingly strong. He managed to get a winning position against Vachier-Lagrave. Bishop e2, queen e2, why is better? So bishop d6, f3, bishop h5, queen to h4 was his point. And black had to get a very ugly pawn structure. So bishop g6 takes, f takes. Not a pleasant situation. So there's ideas here, and yeah, I'm not surprised this is making a comeback. Vladimir Kramnik, who recently started playing more and more 1e4, always has his own ideas in all the lines. Oh, another line I know. The MVL Wojtasza game is following the good old Marshall. Marshall has been my main opening forever, pretty much. Therefore, yeah, I like to think I'm a bit of an expert here. So is Mr. MVL, who's been on the forefront of fighting against it in these lines. I think he played this recently against Levon Aronian and even won a game or two in this, but of course this has been analyzed very deeply. And MVL, who, not telling any tales out of school here, was a member of Team Carlsen during the World Championship match as well, where the anti-marshals also feature prominently. Goes for 8a4 with the white pieces. Wojtaszek plays the main reply, b4. Bishop b7 is another legal move when, well, you have to deal with this bishop being slightly misplaced after d3. But I believe Carlsen recently played bishop b7 here. a4, b4 played in this game. White has a choice here between d4, d3 and a5. You know, it has to be said that a5 more often than not will transpose back to d3 lines after d6, d3. It's the same position as if you went d3, d6 and now a5. a5, a typical move here, trying to first of all stop black from going knight to a5 and then splitting up the black pawns, making them potentially targets in the future. Even though it has to be said that the pawn on a5 down the stretch can also become a target after rook b8, rook b5. So let's see what happens. Bishop e6 is the main line, and bishop takes e6. Bit of a recent trend, played first by Topalov against Peter Svidler. Just, yeah, not waiting for black to take here, which I believe is a solid idea. So bishop takes e6, doubling these e-pawns, always double-edged, opening the f-file for the black rook, giving black some central control, but also making sure these pawns could be weaknesses down the stretch. Now knight b2, this knight wants typically to go to b3 or to c4. Rook to b8, c3, opening the way for the queen to a4, takes, and rook b5. As I mentioned, the pawn on a5 can also be a liability. Looks like both guys have done their homework here. Maxime will probably play knight c4, and the theory debate is only just beginning. Normally, white is the slightest bit better here because of the slightly weakened black structure. And yeah, especially if black can't get in d5, this could be a nuisance in the future, but black is still extremely solid, doesn't have any bad pieces. So yeah, typical modern chess, both sides well aware what they're doing. Let's see what's happening. Just as I praised this new idea after queen c7, knight e2, bishop g4 castles, Kramnik once again goes his own way, goes knight to a3. At least I said he always has his own ideas. Knight a3, I've never seen that. Hinting that he might want to jump to b5. Yeah, so Fedoseev nips that in the bud, goes a6. Knight to c2. What is the knight doing on c2? Like you often see it with colors reversed in these Queen's Gambit Karlsbad structures, that black goes given the chance knight a6, knight c7, knight e6. So I'm guessing Kramnik is just taking that idea and employs it with the white pieces. Wants to eventually bring this knight around to here. Doesn't look very aggressive at first sight. Knight f6, logical move by Fedoseev, and he goes h3, saying, you know what, I'm not going to allow you to develop your bishop to any good square, to g4 or to f5. Therefore, you have to decide. You want to play e6, block your own bishop in. You want to play e5, play with an isolated pawn. Then my knight on c2 is doing well, controlling the d4 square. Or you want to play g6, and this is what I would expect Fedoseev to do. This is the most common in such situations. Go g6, bishop g7, then either castle or play bishop f5 anyway. But yeah, certainly Kramnik once again coming up with his own little ideas in a not so well established line. Interesting stuff. Andreikin against Vachier-Lagrave, employing a setup that, first of all, white can stop this. If he starts with e3 and black goes knight f6, bishop takes c4, this position bishop g4 is not that great because queen b3 attacks some things. Secondly, it's never been at the forefront of theory, this move bishop g4, but it's not bad. I've actually prepared for this many times trying to crush it. You can't crush it. It's quite solid. And it's typical for Andreikin's style. It's not very sharp, but slightly offbeat, leads to maneuvering positions. I believe Magnus did something half similar against Geary recently, even though he already has pawn on a6. Black's typical plan here is not so much to go c5, which he would try to do in the normal queen's gambit accepted, because after c5 play moves to the queen side, and this b7 pawn could be a weakness with his bishop no longer covering it. Instead, black's plan quite often is to go knight to c6, then bishop to d6, and prepare the e5 breakthrough in the center, where this bishop would be tremendous help. We'll see what Vachier comes up with. My best guess is he has not prepared for this line specifically, therefore he will play something solid, which is in his style. Castle, put the bishop back on e2, and have a look around. We'll find out. In the Nisipiano Bluebaum Veresov discussion, players are still following a main line, knight to f3, knight to c6, knight to e5. I believe my main recommendation in this position was bishop to d7, because I'm chicken and I don't want my pawn structure to be spoiled, but I do know that the computer also gave e6 as perfectly fine. I think I've said that much in my series, but I said I'm chicken, I don't want my pawn structure to be spoiled. Therefore, I was recommending bishop d7. Bluebaum doesn't care. He goes for this, bc, knight to a4. White has to fight against c5, else black could end up with a bad structure. And Bluebaum goes bishop d6. Which, yeah, is a little more double-edged. I know the computer says this is perfectly fine. But you have to do something about these potential weaknesses. I don't think it's too serious after castles. Black can either go knight d7 and push for a quick c5, or knight e4, c5. Or you can go e5 and try to free your bishop that way. But it's at least a factor that could help white gain a nibble. Therefore, my personal preference was to go bishop to d7 instead. Big Ulster is saying, I just paid for my premium membership extension by credit card and it isn't showing. Yeah, I can't see the crown next to your name there, Big Ulster. Sorry, it looks like it didn't work, but maybe it takes a minute, I'm not sure. Keep us posted. Goblin says, hi Henker. And der Henker says, hello Goblin. Oof, Henker is such a tough name. Vladimir Sergeyevich says, wieso in English? Wieso? Because more people understand English than German, Vladimir. My apologies. Aronian deserves it. What are we talking about? That's what Sis Bishop is saying. Aronian deserves it. And Anand won't be around this time to shoot him down like he usually does. Alright, so it looks like the players are already taking their time here. Vachier, not sure how to handle this. In the old days there were some sharp lines here. Like how do you do this? h3, bishop h5, castles, knight c6, knight c3. Some stuff like this, I believe. Which was considered to be good for white, but recently people stopped going for this. I have a feeling that you might not even get knight to c6 in this position, maybe knight bd7. And I also seem to recall that in some position bishop to b4 was a move. Maybe here, fighting against his e4 breakthrough. And things weren't that easy, therefore white players started behaving in a more humble fashion and often going for plans like bishop back to e2, then knight bd2, b3, bishop b2, trying to make it harder for black to get an e5 and trying to get a small edge, putting this knight on c4 as well. We'll see how this one goes. Looks like Andreikin got the first surprise in. Fedosseyev takes a slightly surprising decision, at least to my mind. He goes e6. I thought he would go g6, not agreeing to lock his bishop in. But he's saying, no biggie, I'll put the bishop on d6, go short castles, then free my position by playing e5. And I'll be happy. Question is, will he be happy or can Kramnik get a little something here? I'm honestly not sure. I will play a move like rook e1. Maybe prepare bishop g5 without allowing the knight coming to e4. And it's going to be a question. I have a feeling e5 is a premature here, so probably black would just continue developing. Even though I was going to say continue developing, go bishop d7, rook a8, and prepare e5. But if white manages to put a knight on e5, like here queen e2, rook a8, knight e5, these situations can become very sad for black very quickly. So you have to keep that in mind. Probably you don't have time for a move like bishop to d7. You might have to go, I don't know, rook e8. Tricky position to play, not so sure. Because bishop g5 is also on the agenda. I'm not a big e7, e6 fan. I understand that Fedoseev probably got surprised by Kramnik's knight a3, knight c2, h3 business. But yeah, to me, g6 looked more natural than e6. Just as I said, Maxime would probably go knight c4. He puts his knight on f1. Interesting. The tactics. I haven't switched on an engine yet. I'll keep you guys posted when I do. So far, the bar is in the middle. The tactics seem to be that after knight takes a5, c4, I guess wins. Rook c5, bishop e3, and you can't have the knight defending this. The rook defending the knight anymore, sorry. While after rook takes a5, I don't see any way to win material. Guessing he wants to take and play queen a4 then. After c5, at the very least, you always get this pawn back eventually. I don't know, bishop somewhere, turning rook to a1. It's very hard to believe that black can hang on to the a6 pawn. If white is better, however, remains to be seen. And I guess Radek is currently considering if he wants to go rook takes a5 or not. Other moves that come to mind. Queen b8 or queen a8 even, intending to double rooks here. Always a topic. d5, sometimes you can think about in these positions. It's a desirable move strategically. You always have to be sure that after e takes d5, you are able to recapture with the pawn. When after knight e5, sometimes there's compensation for the pawn in such situations. Like bishop goes to d6 and there's some play on the king side. But in this particular position, I'm not so sure that works. And of course, after d5, white is by no means obliged to take. He can normally ignore that as well and play a move like knight to g3. When once again, the debate would be, can black take now? These positions, they're very, very tough to evaluate and to play. Interesting choice by Maxime there, not going for the martial debate against one of the biggest specialists out there. Or I'm just assuming so, because Radek is a big specialist on anything. But instead, Maxime goes for the move 8a4. I'm reading that Andreikin is winning. Who's saying that? James Mescal is saying Andreikin isn't winning. Why would he be winning with black after 7 moves? Vachier played queen b3. Interesting decision. Allowing his pawns to be doubled after bishop f3, gf. But of course, in return, gaining the 2 bishops. I know that queen b3 is not the main continuation here. People typically don't do that. But it's still a very critical move, forcing this and asking black, how do you want to defend the pawn? You don't want to play b6, because weakening these light squares on your queen side is not a thing you do after just giving up your light square bishop. Therefore, you can think about sacrificing this pawn, knight c6 or knight bd7. Or if you don't want to sacrifice it, or c5 immediately. And if you don't want to do that, queen to c8 is the only decent way I can see to cover that. Let's think about sacrificing it though. If I go knight c6 and you take knight b4, but it doesn't look like it's enough. Nah, even bishop b5 check should be good for white. Yeah, this doesn't seem to work. I was also wondering about knight a5, but that's even worse, because then bishop b5 check. Once again, knight d7, either queen a6 is good, or just take. And after queen takes, the rook on a8 is dropping. He would have to go king takes and queen b5 check. It's pretty much resigns. Therefore, knight c6, not the brightest of ideas. Sometimes you can sacrifice this pawn for just speedy development. And then say, you know what, your king's in the center. Congratulations on taking my b-pawn. But you will not be able to enjoy your extra pawn all that much. And that does strike me as a serious option here. I'm not sure who's better and why, but such a position, I would believe in black's compensation. Because yeah, not so easy to find a safe haven for that king. I'm sure Andreikin, he's contemplating those options or the more passive move, queen to c8. b6, I'd be very surprised if he played. Dath Benoni is asking, hey Jan, how is it to play against Kramnik? Did you ever win in Classic or in Blitz? No, I drew in my first Dortmund tournament in 2008 and lost in my second in 2012. And I don't know, it's strange because Kramnik was always a childhood hero of mine with his style, and I grew up watching his games, even though he's only 4 years older than me. He was good at such a young age, so yeah, it's always strange to face your idols. I did get annoyed that he was touching my pieces. Don't touch my pieces, Vladimir. He did say Jadup and so on, but it's slightly annoying if your opponent like corrects your pieces all the time. But then again, he's a former world champion and Mr. Dortmund, so yeah, it didn't feel like he was out of line. This is just what I remember, and I do remember that he outprepared me in the King's Indian. Played a fantastic novelty. People have been teasing me about the game for a long time. It was just some very nice homework by Vladimir Kramnik. The game he beat me in 2012. And yeah, those are the only two I played against him. I don't think we played any rapids or blitzes. He's pretty good at chess. This guy is, what, 42 now? Still number 2 in the world. Nothing to be snuffed at. Vladimir Kramnik. Let's see what his position is. I don't like Fedoseyev's play. I didn't like e6, and I also don't like b5 and bishop to b7. b5, this just seems to create targets for later, like after b4 and a4 could be coming. Or whenever white goes a4, you better be sure that b4 works for you. While this bishop is still not really doing anything, so I'm not sure what his plan is. If he wants to play this coffeehouse style with long castles, rook g8, g5, it just looks like white would be 1,000 times quicker on the queen side after b4, a4. So, no, I'm not a fan. I'm not sure what he's up to even after, let's say, rook e1, bishop d6, bishop g5 already looks awkward. Does not look like a nice position for Fedoseev to me. And once again, nice homework by Kramnik. Digging up this knight a3, knight c2, a3 idea. It looks ridiculously slow, but is asking black a tricky question, because normally in this line you count on being able to put your bishop on g4, and by just stopping that, life becomes a little harder. But as I said, I would have thought g6, bishop g7, and then eventually bishop f5 would be the typical reaction here. While e6 by Fedoseev, not a fan. b5, also not a fan. Just seems to be leading to more weaknesses. So yeah, I would say this has gone quite well for Mr. Vladimir Kramnik. Seems like Radek is the first who has to think in this game after MVL blitzed out knight f1. And in a theory discussion, it's of course always pleasant to be the first to get in a surprise. Radek taking his time here, but I have nothing new to say about the position. I have my doubts that d5 works here. If that doesn't work, you have to calculate rook takes a5, which I still can't see a refutation of. But it could end up being a little clumsy after something like this. Even though, how bad is this? Even if I give the pawn back, go knight b7, queen a6, say knight c5. Not sure this is so much worse. C4, let's say queen c8 to go here. Looks defendable, but committal decisions to be made that early in the game. So once again, to recap this thing, today it's me, myself and I all alone, and only until 6 p.m. Then I'm going to my dad's birthday party. My dad is turning 70 years old. That was a priority. Tomorrow it's me, myself and I. But the whole day long, then Monday is a rest day. Because after playing 2 games of stressful chess, who does not need a little rest? The Dortmund participants do get that. Then from Tuesday on, it will become a premium show with Lawrence Trent. Peter Svidler hopefully be able to join us on Skype. And yours truly. So if you're not a premium member yet, this is your chance. If you get an annual subscription, you will get not only a mug signed by me or somebody important, you will also get access to all the videos on Chess24, literally thousands of videos. You will be allowed to participate in the banter blitzes. What greater pleasure than to lose to me and the other banter blitzers, and you will have access to all the premium programming. Yeah, that's it. But for today, it's just me, myself and I for 2 more hours. Then, birthday party for 70-year-old. That it is. Back to the action where Andrejkin did play c5 as I expected. Looks like, yeah, just a good midterm pawn sacrifice. Queen b7, knight bd7. I have a feeling I've seen this position before, but it just feels on general grounds that after dc bishop c5, black has enough compensation. It takes a long time for white to, whatever, make his extra pawn a factor, and it's quite tough to bring his king to complete safety. Because even on the queen side, would not be exactly safe with the b file open. So the best square for the king is probably on h1. But with the pawn structure altered the way it is, it does not strike me as a fantastic option either. So I would guess that Vachier, surprised by his opponent's opening play, freestyled a bit here with queen b3 and maybe underestimated this pawn sacrifice a little bit. I quite like it for black. As I said, Vachier, not very active recently. His only chess in 2017 was 7 draws in the Chinese league. I played more chess than that. I played Thailand Open, I played some Bundesliga games. I'm way more active than Mr. Vachier. Therefore, yeah, a surprise invite. There is 2 theories. One is that they wanted a Chinese participant. Then they figured out everybody else was busy in Danzhou, this tournament where Wei Yi has kept crushing people. Put his rating on 2750 plus, doing very impressive stuff. Or the other theory is that Vachier hails from close to a city called Xi'an, which is a partner city of Dortmund. I don't know. We shall hopefully find out. What's happening in the chat? Big Ulster is hopefully getting helped with his payment issue. Peter is saying, Fedosseev played all the best moves and Jan does not like it. Yeah, I'm unplugged. I might disagree with the engine sometimes. Apologies for that. I'm sure the engine is right. But yeah, to my mind, this e6 followed by b5 and bishop b7 looks very strange. This bishop is a bit of a headache and it will be hard to make it contribute to the game. Well, this structure always has this kingside attack built in for white with his access to the e5 square. Well, for black, the built-in push is this minority attack with b5, b4. But that, with the given circumstance and the bishop on b7, does not really look like a big attack to me. So it might be playable for black. I'm not a big fan of black's position here. And as I've said, I would have played g6, not e6. No Radek move. Evans Gambit says, hard to imagine how can Kramnik win this? Whoa. This position out of the opening, board full of pieces, and we're already saying hard to imagine how Kramnik can win this. I can imagine 1,000 ways how he can win this. I can imagine 1,000 ways how Fedosseev can win this. This is a fresh position, unbalanced pawn structure, only one pair of pawns exchanged. This is exactly what you want to play for a win. Nisipiano against Bluebone. Nisi played bishop to g3. I'm not sure. Do I call him Nisi? I'm not sure what I would call him. Probably Dieter. I think we normally call him Dieter. Dieter played bishop g3. His first name is Livio Dieter. That's why. That's the L. Did I look at bishop g3? I have a feeling I was looking at bishop takes d6 when I studied this. Bishop g3, of course, always makes sense. If black insists on this trade, then after hg, this rook has been activated without having to make a move. But on the downside, it could lose some time. If black were to go knight e4, for example, and then you decide to take... I don't think knight e4 is an issue, just thinking about what options could be. I'd castle when white would probably go here. No. Yeah, still not a big fan of taking this, which would, yeah, show that Nisipiano has a point of playing this slow move, keeping the tension. I was thinking about giving this check, but I don't really see any upside after c3. Knight is covered and takes. We haven't really gained anything. White can even go b4 to increase his grip over the c5 square. So yeah, bishop g3. Interesting move. What else can black do after bishop d3? I don't know. Well, this is what I was talking about earlier. I feel like the onus is on black now to prove that he's doing alright in spite of his slightly broken structure, which is why I would have avoided that. This is what I gave in my series. You go bishop d7, then you can meet knight c6 with bishop c6. Here takes doesn't really bother us either, because then, unlike in the Fedosseev game, we get rid of this prone bishop, and after e6, bishop d6, black's just fine. So I always thought this was easier to play. Well, now you do have some decisions to make. And Nisipiano, even though I do recall that the computer said this was equal, even though white is probably not better, it feels like his position is a little easier to play. There's some discussion about Kramnik's knight on c2. And yeah, I agree, this knight is not ideal. That's the price he, I guess, had to pay for forcing that structure. Then again, this knight often finds it hard to find a great square in these positions. Like if we were to go to f1 after h3, can't go to g3 either. Can access the e3 square either way. So I'm not sure. This knight might have a future if white manages to go b4 followed by a4 to put pressure on this b5 pawn via a3. Could come into the game via e3, g4, or way down the line. Could make it here. But I agree, it looks a little weird on c2 currently. Where would you like to have it? Well, e5 is probably the best, but that will be hard to do. Because once it gets here, it will get exchanged. And Thrifty is saying this is very similar to the e4, c6, knight f3, d5, e, d, cd, knight, e5 line. Nisipiano game. Yeah, all these structures are similar. The one we just saw and the Nisipiano game. It all comes down to similar things. I always thought that, yeah, in the very soft, you pay a price for having your knight committed to c3. But Nisipiano found a role for it because of the pawn structure on a4. Potentially fighting for these c5 and b6 squares, which Mr. Broken Record Jan prefers bishop d7 in this position to not allow this. Vachier has decided, I will not allow you, Mr. Andreikin, to sacrifice a pawn against me. I won't accept it. You can give me that pawn. I will not take it. And played knight c3. Interesting decision. What is he planning to do after c takes d4? What's going on? Now queen b7, is that his point? I guess that's his point. dc, queen a8. Well, after knight d7, knight b5 could be an option first of all. And even ed4. Like, the white structure might look ridiculous here, but these pawns control a lot of squares, and I actually prefer the position with cd, ed included for white, because his bishop can go somewhere, than with the black pawn still on c5 and the white pawn on e3. But probably knight b5 is a good move here, so this line, I guess, will not happen. Andreikin can, however, just ignore knight c3, I would guess, and play knight bd7, for example. When after queen takes b7, there must be other options. I was gonna say cd looks natural here, but I would contradict what I just said a minute ago, because it would be transposition. Do we have anything better? I don't want to move this bishop e7, because then after dc, I would have to spend another tempo to get my pawn back. It's not ideal. But I can't think of a smart move. a6 looks too slow. So maybe it would come down to this. Yeah, after ed bishop d6, we claim we have enough compensation anyway. Do we really? Knight b5. b4 check. We just claim it. Well, knight b5. I missed bishop b4 last time I praised this line. Things might not be so clear. King e2, castle. Looks quite playable for black as well. Which would bring us back to square one. Why not cd4? Queen b7, knight b7. And I'm reading that Bluebaum will play for Deitzisau, board 1 in next Bundesliga season. I did know he is switching to Deitzisau. Not sure if he will be board 1, but I haven't read up on it, so we'll trust Mr. North Sea for it. On it. Some discussion in the Kramnik game if after bishop g5 black can go knight to e4. Bishop g5 is a naturally enough move, especially if knight e4 is not good, hinting at bishop takes f6. So can we go knight e4? Takes, rook e4. I don't see any immediate tactics, therefore it would be some long-term compensation thing, which could very well be the knight coming to c4 or just castle. There is some compensation, especially with this knight looking silly on c2. So yeah, it's an interesting idea, unless I'm missing some direct tactic here. I would still, I don't know. I was gonna say I would still take white here, but I'm not 100% sure about it. It does look like a decent way to justify this bishop on b7. Which could then maybe mean that bishop g5, even though it looks tempting, is not the way to go. What else do we have? Could play queen e2, then to go knight e5 followed by bishop f4. But Fedoseev could be pesky and insist on not allowing that. And no, Kramnik has played bishop to g5. Discouraging black from castling, because this looks scary. Yeah, he's not gonna do that. But knight e4 is interesting. That's what the compis say as well. Compis say this is fine for black. Wojciech has played queen to d7. After some consideration, he chose a more natural square for his queen than the ones I was suggesting, b8 or a8, Just going queen d7, playing to connect his rooks, and also keeping an eye on the a4 square. Let's say I play some dumb move like h3. Now we can take, and there is no queen a4, which was a bit of a worry in these lines I was talking about earlier. Therefore, MVL has to decide how to react. d4 is always looming in such positions. But here after takes, it seems to me that black can just take on a5 with either rook or knight, and white wouldn't have much to show for his pawn. So he has to do something smarter. Good move, queen d7. I did not see this, taking out the option of going queen a4. Quo vadis, Monsieur MVL? And I do know that's not French. Can't think of a good move. Grandmasterly expertise in action. But yeah, how do we keep this pawn? C4 comes to mind, but then just takes as well. Nah. Maybe just develop the bishop anyway. Then after takes, this queen a1, when I would guess white at least gets his pawn back. Queen b5 looks very shaky. c4, rook b1. There's probably some way to win material here. I guess c4. Queen b4, bishop d2. Queen b6, rook b1. Yeah, this looks too dangerous. Therefore, yeah, this knight would have to go back, and then at least you get a6. So I'm guessing developing the bishop is the answer to g5 or to e3. See what MVL comes up with. But yeah, I can't think of anything better than probably this move, because now knight a5 we still have same mechanism, winning material. Yeah, bishop g5 looks natural. And I would guess it's not in black's favor to exchange a-pawns for each other. Like, it still makes the position defendable, but sort of an admission that from now on black is only playing for a draw. Because he will be slightly worse here. These weaknesses, when the battle, we take the queen side out of the battle, and it moves to the center and the king side. This weakness will be more pronounced. Also, a rook landing on b7 feels like more of a danger than a black rook landing on b2. Therefore, even though, of course, you have every drawing chance in the world here, this is not such a pleasant position for black, I would guess. And hence, I was wondering if after bishop g5, black can do better. I don't know, maybe rook fb8 or play some sort of move that keeps the option of taking on a5 later on. Find out we shall. Kramnik played bishop g5, where I read in the chat that the computer says h6, very brazen, provoking bishop f6. I'm not sure that's what you do here. I'd be scared, even though there is some logic to it. Here, you do control the e5 square, you do get the two bishops, and the king does not have to go to the king side, can stay in the center for a bit. But still a tough decision to make. Such a position after, let's say, knight h4, threatening, maybe knight f5, maybe queen h5. I would be scared. I would not expect Fedoseev to play h6. Knight a5 looks like a natural move, preparing knight to e4 or knight to c4. Well, in these structures at least, not committing to h6, which doesn't really seem to help all that much. And knight e4 is a pawn sacrifice we talked about earlier. Heinrich Kressepal says h6 is not the computer move. All right, my bad. Yeah, h6 looks strange too. Horsey here or horsey here seem like the natural choices. Andrakin thinking long after knight c3 here. Yeah, still think this is not the time to go passive, to play queen c8, knight bd7 or c takes d4, which according to my maybe faulty logic seem to transpose into each other. Both looked playable to me. cd, queen b7, knight bd7. After knight b5, bishop b4 check looked acceptable. After ed, I wasn't sure. Bishop to d6 or bishop to e7. Get the pieces out and say, I know I'm a pawn down, but your king is dumb. Once I castled, I will have plenty of play. Bluebaum, after some consideration, and I was also struggling to come up with a good move in this position, has decided, you know what, I don't care, I'll take on g3, I'll allow your rook to have a clear view along the h-file, because there's not that much to do on the h-file, and then played queen to d6, which is the best square for the queen. Maybe a good decision, even though normally you shy away from taking here, because of, yeah, this rook freeing effect. I could imagine that after bishop d3, which is the most logical move, Bluebaum wants to waste no time and break in the center with e5. Immédiatement. Takes, queen e2. This endgame shouldn't be much for white. I'd still take white though. Takes, king takes, but yeah. Feels like it's very little. I'm not sure if white can do any better. You probably don't want to allow e4 or ed4. No, this looked like a fairly sensible line. My first fairly sensible line of the day. It's tempting to switch on the engine, but I thought, no Jan, you must use own brain. Then people will see deep thoughts of Grandmaster, not deep thoughts of engine. The problem is, I don't really have any deep thoughts. I don't have any opinions on like topics, and I don't have any deep Grandmasterly thoughts. Like, I'm a trained, let's blitz out random move after we memorize our theory monkey. I like these deep thoughts. I need Peter Svidler around. I was gonna say or Lawrence Trent, but now let's not push it. Knight to c3. I still can't think of anything better. cd. What else is there? Bishop b5 makes no sense. ed also makes very little sense, because black can always go knight bd7 if he wants to transpose, and white is nothing better than takes, I would say. While tinkering with a mover like this gives black extra options, like knight c6 here. Could very well work, queen b7, knight d4. So yeah, seems to have very little upside. To start with ed. Therefore, once again, queen b7, knight d7. Probably ed, because knight b5, check. King e2. Can this work for white? Doesn't really look like it. Knight c7 check is a problem, but let's see. Castles. Knight takes d4. Gets very sharp, but I have faith in black's position here somehow. b8 maybe. Or knight e5. No, knight e5 you take. I can't do that. Very complicated. Could be that we're heading down a road like this, and would that explain why both sides taking a lot of time early in the opening, because you can't just play such a position on feel unless you're the commentator. You can just blitz out some moves. But with black you want to be sure you have enough for your 2 pawns here. With white you want to be sure you don't get checkmated with your king in the middle. Therefore, yeah, a lot of calculating for both to do after knight to c3. My gut feeling, for what's worth, still says that black is in very decent shape. And even though Andreikin was not very active, you could say, in 2017, he's still been way more active than Wang Yue. They used to nickname Wang Yue Sleepy Panda. I'm not sure that still applies. I'm not sure it ever applied. But that's what they used to call him. Andreikin, I'm not sure if he has any nickname apart from the standard Dima. But I believe every Russian, or every Dmitry is probably called Dima. And wow, he does decide to defend the pawn. Does not play fearlessly. I have no idea. Does not sacrifice all his material like I was doing. Plays queen d7, which is a better version of this queen c8 we had earlier. Still feels slightly odd to me. Not sure I can put my finger on it, but I'm not sure I like this move. It allows d5 for starters. Threatening bishop b5, so you have to take. Is this so good for black? Looks nice for white to me, to be honest with you. The plan is just to develop very quickly. I don't get it. Why is this not a strong move? Help me out here. Any people with wise computers that can agree or disagree? Looks very strong. ED is forced, or knight d5 transposing, because the double threat of bishop b5 or de is too much to deal with. So you have to take, knight takes. I'm assuming you don't want to allow knight f6, gf. This is just a bad position. Probably he wants this, and after bishop d2, this is a move. White has to go e4, which you don't really want, because it's giving up the d4 square. Even this position you could make a case for white, but this is a much bigger mess than what I was looking at earlier. So that's his point. Still don't trust it. Oh yeah, this changes things. If I can't get in bishop d2 and long castles, it's a lot less smooth than I thought this could be. Still not sure. If I play some move f4, let's say, long castles, am I gonna get checkmated here? Very possible that my greed will lead into checkmate land. But here there's this queen e6 bailout at the very least. But yeah, if this line isn't so clear, does white have alternatives to d5? dc5 is certainly possible. Not the most exciting of moves, but neither was queen d7. So now all these options look a lot more appealing. I understand it's easier to sacrifice other people's pawns, but I have a feeling queen d7 can't be the critical move. Such a position, yeah, it's probably not the end of the world. Knight c6 is coming and black should be alright. Yeah, it's nothing special. So yeah, it does seem to hinge on the evaluation of this stuff. which I don't trust at first sight, but I'm also a well-known overestimator of the two bishops, so you always have to price that in. And if you don't have a great move for white here, maybe it's just fine for black. In the meantime, the new Russian shooting star, Fedoseev, who I was gonna say played a great world teams, which I think is true based on his result. He had like 6 out of 8 after being added to the team. Very last minute from what I hear. But he did lose. Is that true? I should look up my facts, but I think it's true. He did lose the key game against China, the only match the Russians lost. So he probably has mixed feelings about that. But Fedoseev, been considered a very promising, quote-unquote, youngster for a long time, now seems to have broken through, crossed 2-7, made it to 2-7-26, and is dealing with Vladimir Kramnik here with the black pieces. Knight to e4 played. He's not afraid to sacrifice that pawn. I guess white should actually take it. If you don't take it, your setup doesn't make sense. If black manages to establish a knight on e4 before we get our knight to e5, black's just fine. So you got to take. Just wondering if d5 made any sense here, but it doesn't. Even ef3 is fine. So we should take once again. And now black has a choice. Probably you just castle out of the way. But you could also consider trying to reroute this knight instantly. But I would expect this, keeping his options open. When black is only left with good pieces, white is left with an extra pawn, but a slightly funny looking knight on c2. I would say it's very close to full compensation. But once again, I'm a bit of a sucker for the two bishops. Interesting stuff. Fedoseev not afraid of big names with black. And is this his first super tournament? I guess it depends on the definition. I think he played some stuff in Russia. But yeah, I believe it's fair to call it his first super tournament. And he's going for a pawn sacrifice against world number 2, Vladimir Kramnik. In the Wojtaszek game, took me a while, but I did, I believe, yeah. Suggest the correct move, bishop g5, and rook takes a5 has been played. I was expecting takes, and queen a1, when there is no way, at least as far as I could see, for black to hang on to his material, because queen b5, c4 seems to be extremely awkward to meet. And yes, such expeditions probably will lead to a no-return policy. So you don't want to do that. Therefore, after queen to a1, black would have to go knight c6 or knight to b7. Maybe knight b7, taking knight c5 is possible. And play such a position, which might be slightly worse, but tenable. And that's what I would expect to happen. No excitement, or, well, potential excitement, but no surprises in Nisipiano versus Bluebaum, the German number 1 against the German number 3. Well, the German number 4 is waiting to overtake the German number 3, should the German number 3 lose this game. But yeah, this developed as we expected. I was talking about e5 earlier, takes, queen to e2, with a teeny tiny white advantage, but nothing special. Still, with these pawns and the potential weaknesses, I'd rather take white, which is why I prefer to move bishop d7 here. I believe this could be a good time for me to take my first time out, first and only time out, because today it's gonna be a short show. I'm out of here at 6, which is in a bit more than an hour. I'll get some new coffee, be back with you people, with you guys, sounds less condescending than you people, in a couple minutes. Thank you for watching the show. Let's hope we get some fireworks in the 1 hour that we have left. See you guys then. I should find some friendly way to keep this game on. I'll think about it. Kramnik did not take the pawn. He went a4. Surprise. Action Jackson. Stay tuned. We'll talk about it after the break. Welcome back, everybody, to the third and already final hour of my Dortmund Sparkassen Chess Cup coverage. Today, I only have 1 hour left because I gotta run and attend my dad's 70th birthday party. Because I've been told he only turns 70 once per year. There is action in the chess games. I have given in to my very weak instincts and confirmed some stuff during the break with the computer. And the first major correction is that in the game MVL Wojciech, I was saying queen a1 and white is slightly better. That turns out to be very untrue because I missed knight b3 or knight b7, but same thing. Queen a6, knight c5, queen c4. We even had this position on the board, and I said white was better. But what I did not anticipate was that after rook a8, there is a major threat of rook a4 or d5, trapping this queen pretty much. And that would be a bit of a cold shower. White would have to go to great gymnastics to stop losing his queen. My best guess is, of course, I have no way of verifying that, is that Maxime missed that from afar. And he had to go for plan B after this, which he did by playing d4. But now he's a pawn down. I guess he has compensation. Takes, knight c6, the a pawn stays alive. Something has gone a little wrong for Monsieur MVL there. In the other big game, is that fair to say? Probably not. In the other game, one of the other games, Kramnik Fedoseev. Kramnik has declined his opponent's pawn sacrifice with knight to e4. Did not take it. When, my expert judgment here was that this is full compensation. This bishop is very strong. So rough equality, even though it was very much playable for either side. Instead, Kramnik decided to go for the move a4, trying to undermine this construction, fighting for the initiative, not extra pawns. Food for thought. As I said, cheated with the computer. The computer says b4, very logical move too, and black is perfectly fine. I'm sort of struggling to make sense what Kramnik's rationale was for including this stuff. a4, b4. If you take now, rook takes e4, it doesn't look like you've achieved anything compared to not including a4, b4. If anything, this is a better version for black because c3 is weak. The knight can set up shop on c4. So this would make a lot of sense. Computer gives knight to d2 here, heading for the c4 square. Maybe that is a reason that he wanted to free that square for his horsey. The problem, of course, with knight to d2 is black is not forced to stay pawn down or to go pawn down. He can just defend his e-pawn with f5. And this looks fairly playable to me as well. Therefore, it seems like Fedoseev after b4 does have a decent position. While I'm busy reading out computer moves, I should also point out that the computer says castles is also perfectly fine. Just not defending that pawn. Even though this, does strike me as a strange way to play for a human. Just continuing the game without this pawn. I don't think anybody plays like this, but just for the record, the computer says this is perfectly fine for black. It even says -001 or whatever. Fuchsia saying lag test. What's going on? All these quick movements here, have they made the live stream slow and laggy? I'm watching the show Silicon Valley, and there it seems to be a big thing to get a live stream of events up the fastest. The show is filmed in what, 2016? Didn't we have like live streaming technology back then? Was that such an innovation for the Pied Piper guys? I get very confused. Anyway, MVL does not seem to be better because of this trick I pointed out earlier. And he's currently pawn down. He should have enough compensation initiative to gain that pawn back, but no more than that. Kramnik Fedoseev is a position full of life, where, computerly speaking, both b4 and short castles make sense. Short castles, humanly speaking, not so much. b4, very much so. Vachier, after some thought, and by after some thought I mean just this very second, after like half an hour thought, has decided to go d takes c5, which is in his style, keeping it very solid, keeping the structure as close to symmetrical as you can. Will lead to 2-2 here, 4-4 on the king side. However, the white bishop should be upset by the fact that this king is not entirely safe on the side of the board after just bishop takes c5, intending to go knight to c6. I believe that Andrejkin is going to be perfectly fine. And yeah, if anybody has to concerned about egalite, it's probably white. I think that's a fair statement, because after knight c6, you gotta worry about knight e5, knight a5, where to put your king. Well, for black, you have a bunch of very natural moves to make. Therefore, even though I wasn't a fan of this queen d7 at first sight, it does look like Andrejkin has won the opening battle, and I still feel very much that d5 was the critical move, not d takes c5. What else is there? Oh, I was doing well predicting moves by my compatriots. Because yeah, all of this is as expected, with an endgame that, as I said, is slightly better for white. These pawns are potentially weak. This bishop is not ideal. It's certainly no big deal. But I would take white here in a heartbeat. The knight is well placed. Can go here. You can play c4 down the stretch and put a rook on the c file. Blue bone's going to have to work for his draw here. And I don't think he's going to be very happy. Because this setup, yeah, gives black no active play. And Nisipiano, even though he has an entertaining style and some very sharp, some of those slightly shady openings, he's at his core, he's a good technical player. Don't tell anybody that I know that about him, but I believe his real strength is in technical positions. He's a very classical, good grinder. And this is a perfect situation for him, especially in the first round, against a very strong theoretician like Matthias, to yeah, have zero problems and be able to push a bit. So let's sum up. Nisi, better, happy. Vachier, not better, not sure if happy or not happy. Andrejkin probably reasonably happy, especially after dc5. d5 look better. Kramnik is normally happy with this position, so Kramnik happy, but not better after either b4 or short castles. MVL, I don't know, I could be doing him wrong here, and this is all part of a genius scheme. My feel is that he missed this idea that the queen can get trapped here, which I also missed until I started going all computerish during the break. I had this position, I thought white was better, but then you see the move rook a8 and you see, ugh, this is a very, very unpleasant threat to meet. And all of a sudden, black is better, because in order to keep this queen alive, you probably have to go d4, clear this square. But it will cost you, I don't know, I guess the e4 pawn, which yeah, is not the pawn you want to give. Therefore, Maxime understood what had happened and goes d4, tries to create an initiative in the center. After, let's say, takes, knight c6, he's probably active enough to win his pawn back somehow. Queen a4 or d5. But he must suffer to maintain equality here, which is not pleasant. Anna1976 says, I like 0-0 for Vladimir Fedoseev versus Kramnik. Yeah, the computer gives us move castles. To me, this is a very odd-looking move. You're just giving a clean pawn. I understand the computer says there's compensation, and I won't argue with him much. But I'd be extremely surprised if Fedoseev just gave that pawn when he has a perfectly decent alternative in form of b5, b4, which is, yeah, the move I would certainly try to make work here. Knight g5 you also consider, but this feels a little scary because now queen h5 is coming. You can't castle currently because h7 would be hanging. So going for something like this, you have a feeling this could go wrong. Queen h5 and some tricks against e6 are in the air. Knight takes g5, probably not on his to-do list. b4 or castles. And Anna1976 is a friend of castles. Amma number 1 is asking, what about a4, b4, c4? Yeah, I was wondering about this too, but this is so weakening that now I feel like probably things have changed and we can take here and take here. Even though, this is actually interesting. You might be right, this might be his point. I didn't think of that. Because I thought now with his bishop gone we can just castle. But here bad things could happen. Still, like with the pressure against e6, queen h5. Yeah, this could work, or this could be dangerous. Let's see the line through. I'm not pretending I'm calculating. This is the comp line. Queen h5, h6 takes, and rook e6. That is the point. Because bishop e6, king h8 doesn't seem to work, but rook e6 threatens a discovered check. And I'm guessing there is no real hiding place for the black king. Not obvious, but it works. Bishop d3. All of a sudden, too many threats. Interesting. And Fedoseev has played a third move that, yeah, I didn't have on my radar, even though it's fairly logical too, especially if you're afraid of b4, c4. He took on a4, which is legal, eliminating the threat of a takes b5. After rook takes a4, now he can just castle and say, you know what, be my guest to take this pawn. I still don't really care. I still believe that I have compensation here. The knight a5 heading towards c4, for example. And I do believe he's not wrong about that. So yeah, the move didn't enter my mind at all, because typically your reflex in such positions is never to go ba4, leave yourself with this weak b pawn. But it's a perfectly acceptable decision. I'm wondering if Kramnik can play this position differently without grabbing the pawn. But this knight is just so dominant that I don't really see. But yeah, good point by Amaan 1. This a4, b4, c4 was very possibly the white idea. Seems like black is fine here after knight to d8, shoring up his defenses, but that's not something you really want to play. And I'm also not sure how fine this is. This is an ugly square, b3. Yeah, the c4 is a very good point. Missed that. Can white still do it? Probably not here, though. No, this is different. Oh, this pawn stays alive. Doesn't block the b4 square for the black pieces. Who knows? Could still be, an option to spice it up. Yeah, this is an interesting idea to blow the position open very quickly, even here. Amaan 1 is now curious after ba4. Why isn't bishop e4, rook e4, and weak a pawns, meaning white is good? This I have my doubts about, because even though a pawns are weak, the black pieces are very good now. I'm not saying black is better, but yeah, this line I mentioned, let's say castles. If you take on a4, even knight a5, you could make a case for knight e7 going this way as well. But knight a5, I'm not sure white is really better here. This bishop is so dominant. And the white pieces, they don't really have targets. Let's say I retreat. Bishop goes to d5, rook to b8, knight to c4. Feels like full compensation to me. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if this is the way the game went. But yeah, I have a feeling that black is very much in the game there. Once again, disclaimer, I really like bishops. Wojciech is a pawn up, as people have pointed out. He's played h6, not knight to c6 back immediately. Probably didn't want to allow any queen a4 shenanigans. But does this white allow to win his pawn back? Queen a1 probably doesn't win it back, because knight b3 takes. That's bad news. If we attack it like this, queen e2, if rook a8, rook a1... No, but still knight b3, and this is hanging. It's not that easy. Maybe white can just create some initiative in the center here, e5, and say that's enough compensation. But I'd be nervous about not being able to get my pawn back. And MVL, therefore, if bishop f6 doesn't win the pawn back, does go bishop to h4, just keeping the tension. I have a feeling he probably doesn't think he's worse here, because this pawn is not such a big factor, and white has a bit of initiative in the center. e5 or d5, and the e6 pawn slightly weak. It's very hard to believe that black could ever be in trouble, but probably MVL is not too worried here. Anything to talk about here? Not really. As I said, I think black is very fine. And for white, you have to decide what setup you want to go for. I feel it's key to fight against knight c6, knight a5. So probably this is a good starting point. Just eyeing that square. Knight c6. Can we go knight e4? Mr. Computer? Yeah, we kind of can. Such a position could be a logical outcome, where, in spite of my love for the two bishops, here I guess black is fine, because this king is dumb. Doesn't have any safe haven. Like b1 is probably the best destination. But after long castles, I don't know, queen c7. It's black is just fine here. You will always get one of the bishops with knight a5 if we need it, and it's so easy to put the pieces on the right squares. Black doesn't have any bad pieces. Now, this is nothing for white, and Vachier has to be careful. And careful he is, he's playing queen to b5. Logical move, actually, trying to exchange queens. Because his king is weak, he wants to get rid of the queens and go for the endgame. I like this decision. I still don't think he's better, but it makes sense to take the queens off. And it's also very much in line with his, dare I say, quite technical style. Very tight. Using the fact that his bishop is unprotected, so black can't go knight c6 to take the queens off. And yeah, after, this. Black's position and development is still so fluid that he shouldn't have any problems. But I guess Vachier will keep the balance here without particular issues either. You go here, you hide your king away somewhere. Black activates and should be quite equal. German number 1, Livio Dieter Nisi-Piano, is a little better against Matthias Bluebaum. Bluebaum's played a5, probably intending to go bishop to a6, exchange his slightly weaker bishop against the white bishop. Good plan. The question is, will it cost too much time? Maybe not, let's say, I don't know, b3 or f3 look like logical moves. In such a position, guess we take, I'm not sure. I want to prepare c4 without having to recapture with the pawn. So rook c1, castle c4, c4, rook e8 is a little awkward. Yeah, we need this too. Such a position should be equal, but I'd still take white because c4 is coming. These squares and these pawns are slightly weak. Therefore, yeah, I've mentioned it earlier, Dieter is a very good technical player. I think he's going to be quite happy here, having some small pressure, especially after this. I'm just not a fan of this move after his opening 2 knight c3. It's, I don't know, I'm old school. It's blocking our own c-pawn, which we need to fight for the center. I just don't like it. But yeah, in this line, I think bishop d7 is a little tighter, and after takes knight a4. Computer is happy here, but the computer does not care as much about structural weaknesses as some of us. Takes this, the computer already likes less. And here, yeah, white is a tiny bit better for sure. What are we talking about in the chat? Zimba active in some chess tournament? Just like Lawrence Trent, who has one more game to go in his Lüneburg Grandmaster tournament. Can't reach 50% anymore, but still big comeback by Lawrence Trent to make it to 3 out of 8 after starting with 0 out of 5. So he will probably be less suicidal than I expected him to be when he joins this commentary on Tuesday after the rest day, on Monday. Which game is interesting? What do you guys want to see? Still the Kramnik game, I'm guessing? After BA. Big decision here. Take the pawn, go c4, take knight d2 now, but here take knight d2 looks strange. Maybe even here, having freed the c4 square for the knight. A lot of very interesting options, and it's a very tough fight. Tough exam for the young master Fedoseev by Professor Kramnik, who would love to take the world #1 spot from Magnus Carlsen. Or I would guess he would love it. I think he's given some interviews and said, I don't care, these young guys that have never been #1, to them it might be a big deal. But you can't fool me, Kramnik. You would love in your 40s to overtake Magnus Carlsen. That'd be nice. Also, chess historians out there, has Kramnik ever been sole world #1? I'm not so sure. I have a feeling at some point he was tied with... Did I just freeze myself with my screen capture here? Maybe I did. This is 2700chess.com. I have a feeling Kramnik at some point was tied for first, maybe after the match with Kasparov, and maybe at some other point, but I'm not so sure if Kramnik was sole #1 or if he wasn't for long. I can't recall it at least. Very old. But here you see, Kramnik exactly 10 points behind Magnus Carlsen, which means he would need the fairly astronomical score of, what was it? 5.5 out of 7 to overtake Magnus? Not very likely to happen, but it is the narrative. We will stick to add excitement to these Dortmund chess days. Sparkassen Schachtage? I don't know what it's called. The Dortmund Super Tournament. Isn't it called the Vladimir Kramnik Tournament? I've seen some poster where it was called Vladimir Kramnik Tournament because it's Kramnik's 25th participation in Dortmund. Age 42, 25, does that add up? I guess it does. We started at 17. Yeah, that works. Been around for a while, won it 10 times, but not in the last 6 years. So Kramnik has some catching up to do when it comes to the Dortmund crushing. And he has played c2, c3 to c4. Some speculation about Kramnik's rating. No, I think he had the same rating as Kasparov at some point after the match, but never sole #1. I could be wrong, but yeah, let me know. I have a feeling he might not have been sole #1 often. And yeah, someone's saying in 1996 shared with Kasparov and 2008 with Anand. There you go. That's according to Ulf Hammerstorm. Thanks, Ulf. Goes to show the longevity of this guy. 1996. That's what? 21 years ago? What do you guys do 21 years ago? Running around the Christmas tree? 1996. I'm also old. I was in 11th grade in 1996. But I was not a titled chess player yet. I think I won the German under-17 junior championship. Is that an oxymoron to say under-17 junior? I think I won in 1996. Or was it 97? No, I think 96. Anyway, c4 played by Kramnik. These lines, yeah, they're very cutthroat, with all kinds of fun sacrifices looming. Knight f7, bishop e6, queen h5. Computer says black survives this, but good luck entering this. Nah, you can't go for this. I'll show you the computer line just to show you the craziness. Bishop h2 check, only good move. King h1. And now, I'll give you one guess what black should play. I don't know, I guess there's like a 20-second delay between the chat and the show. So I should probably make a smart face and wait for one guess. because there's only one move here that does not lose on the spot. And I don't think such things can be calculated even by a young, fearless tactician as Fedosseev. That move would be castles. Bishop e6, rook f7. Black might survive. There's no way you're going here with black if you have a choice. So let's see if we can find that choice. It's not that simple. h6 does not instill a lot of confidence because of this annoying queen h5. Pinning, threatening knight e6, rook e6, knight f7, cd5. Maybe you can survive this. Pure says white is better here. Once again, very complicated lines. So Kramnik going for broke. And knight g5, dc4, or he played bishop c4. I'm very curious to see Fedosseev's next move. Maybe this is a piece of cake for him. Maybe he's just calculated this line. Knight e7, knight f7, bishop h2. Pas de problème. I'm very impressed, or I don't know, surprised that he's just blitzing the sequence out. Maybe he wants this. This looks like this. Saner alternative. I talked about this earlier where the pawn was on b4 instead of on a4. But here it looks better because with the pawn on b4 I said b3 and why is just better. But now the pawn on a4 actually gets to play a role like Bilbo Baggins style in the events to come. And it's making b3 much harder. And this position looks tenable with natural means. This knight defends the soft spots. Bishop d3, for example, bishop e7. Yeah, this looks like the way to go, also justifying b takes a4. And then what makes sense why he blitzed it out. Because yeah, I was biased against this from this earlier line, which I looked at. Because here it just looked like white was in control. But with the pawn on a4, things are different. And technically, black is a pawn up. So yeah, this knight e7 seems to work tactically. But knight to d8 looks like a much more human and humane choice. What's Maxime doing? He's going for broke. h6, bishop h4, we've seen knight c6, and he decided to push d5 immediately. Clarifying the situation. Or does he? Yes, takes. ed. Let's not forget black is a pawn up. If this knight can remain untouched, you go a5. Looks fine. So his point is probably to take here. Take here. Is this great? Ah. It's breakthroughs. Yeah, this seems to work because, yeah, no matter how you take here, I will win material. So if you can't take, then at the very least white has to be active enough. Knight e3, knight g3. This looks fine for white. But yeah, Maxime relying on some complicated tactics, probably to equalize. And here, is there a better move? Compy boy? Compy boy says king h7. What's the difference? e5? I don't get it. Ah, oof, come on computer. You're too good. Here queen f5 works. Threatening queen f2 followed by queen f1. Which would be a bit of a rude awakening. Ah. Chess so complicated. I thought rook f7 could make some sense to defend the queen. Computer says rook f7, knight e3, white is fine. But he says king h7 and then e5 you have this trick, which I don't know. I find this hard to spot. Normally you stop calculating here. But queen f5 very much works. Maybe rather can spot this. And that would mean that Maxime has to, has his work cut out for him. After king h7, e5 doesn't work, you have to play some of like knight e3 going for compensation. But now knight e5, black still does have an extra pawn. None of this happened after d5. Radek went knight e5. Didn't want, not want any piece of it. And it's sort of understandable after e d, you see bishop f6 and these e5 breakthroughs. Why bother? Knight e5, fairly solid. If takes, takes. Takes. He could even go for the endgame, I guess. But you can also recapture your pawn up. I'm guessing. But I'm doing a lot of guesswork here that Maxime doesn't mind being a pawn down. I was going to say, I'm guessing that with the structure, this is playable for white. Still, it's a pawn. And there is the option to go for this, which I don't know, looks sharp. Now can we take? Maybe. John van der Waal says, watching Jan and the machine is like watching my dad talk to the ATM. What does that mean? The ATM is reading lines out to your dad? Why would he talk to it? I'm confused. But yeah, the machine is fairly smart. It's a good chess player. John van der Waal saying, kindness doesn't get you anywhere, it seems. Is that what we learned today? Or does it only apply when you're talking to an ATM machine? You're confusing me, John van der Waal. Bishop c4 on board in Kramnik Fedoseev. I very much expect knight d8, but I will tip my non-existing head if Fedoseev goes for this line. However, I don't really expect this to happen. MVL, after, slight miscue in the opening, has been reduced to trying to find enough compensation for his missing a-pawn for a while now. And after knight e5, he faces a tough decision. I can't really see anything better than takes here, and probably takes here as well, when he has to evaluate. First of all, well, I think this position, you just go with. This seems playable because black has 3 isolated pawns. His king is slightly weaker. This, I don't think white is significantly worse. But you better make sure that this stuff works out for you. Computer. Who was the guy talking to the computer on the Enterprise? Maybe nobody. The computer says this stuff does work out. And by work out, I mean white survives. But yeah, poor Maxime, not the start he was looking for. I'm not sure if he was out-prepared by a Radek, but I don't think that was so much the issue. I believe, that here he just missed. This move, which is easy to miss from afar, because here you think, only I can be better. You have these weak pawns. But then after rook a8, you see, only black can be better. You have this weak queen. That really turns things around quite a bit. So yeah, Maxime fighting for the draw. Kramnik taking a lot of chances here to keep the game sharp against Fedoseev. I looked at knight d8 and knight e7. I read in the chat that castles is also possible, which I had dismissed because I thought bad things must happen to you here. And I still think so. Is this the line we had earlier, or was that with the pawn on b4 again? I think I had all these lines with the pawn on b4 instead of a4. The white pawn on a4. So all of this is a better version. Still looks dangerous though. Surprisingly, this seems good for white. Maybe not that surprisingly. A lot of initiative. Fair to see if calculating all this stuff. 98, 97, short castles. FYI, computer line is rook takes e6. Oh no, now it is 96. This is a line, this 96 we just had. Rook e6 also very cute. I was wondering what happens after hg. But it's perpetual. It's cute. Rook h6. Threatening rook h8. And this little pattern. Beautiful, but easier read out than calculated. In the meantime, in Vachier and Drakin, events develop pretty much as expected. Vachier, playing it very safely, exchange queens, then put his bishop back on the second rank where they can't be targeted anymore, which is one of the good things about bishops. They are long-range pieces. It doesn't matter where they are. They don't have to be on the front line. But as I said, this, as much as I love the two bishops, this position is so active for black that I have a hard time believing he could ever be worse. This knight could threaten to jump into c4 or after castles rook fd8 even into d3. And normally this knight will cost white the light square bishop, and that will lead to a scenario where black is a tiny bit better, but white with some accuracy should manage to make a draw. The Nisipiano game, when I was looking at it, I was looking at long-winded ways to prepare c4, I don't know, b3, rook ac1 and whatnot. Nisipiano just played it, which is also logical enough. It did allow blue to go bishop a6 though. And now if you takes, is this better for white? Should still be a little better for white. These pawns are weaker than these pawns. The king on d3 could feel a little uneasy, but it's still a little better. And Carlson Superlight is asking, is Jan looking at the chat much today? I tend to keep an eye on it so I don't miss interesting comments like this one by Carlson Superlight. Who was also saying, Wei Yi will pass Ding soon. I'm not sure. Isn't Ding doing fairly well? Ding number 10 in the world at 2779. Well, Wei Yi 2756. Won a lot of rating in that recent tournament. That's still almost a 30-point gap. By 30, I mean 23. So I don't think he will pass him that soon. But Wei Yi certainly making strides. Being asked what my thoughts on Wei Yi are. Don't have any big thoughts. He seems pretty good. Like, he's always been known to be sharp, fantastic calculator, but it seems like he's matured. And yeah, his preparation got a lot better, especially in all these Sicilians, but also in other lines with white. If you give him the slightest angle to attack, he's really, really lethal. And due to him playing, he played two Vikes where he played surprisingly passively, but it seems like that helped him to learn to defend like slightly worse positions against stronger players. With black, he's also some slightly surprising choice, like he plays a Petrov, which would not be the first thing you would think with his style, even though it could be that just a lot of Chinese players like playing the Petrov, so he's part of Team Petrov there. But yeah, what can you say? Wei Yi, fantastic player. He's 18, so he will keep improving. How far he's gonna get is an open question, but probably he's gonna be a regular at these super tournaments soon. And then you never know, like, is he gonna be able to surpass the likes of MVL and the Kramniks out there? Those guys are playing chess at a high level and have been doing it for a while. But Wei Yi is certainly a special attacking talent. This game against Yu Yang-yi, stuff he did, this rook h5, it's fairly cute. I haven't seen his game from today yet. I'll check it out after this. So, Fedoseev, still thinking. Aman1 asks, yeah, what would your ideal candidate against Carlsen be? Depends which Carlsen, that's really what it comes down to at the moment. I think Carlsen, at his best, is still clearly the best chess player in the world. But recently, he has not been at his best. He has struggled to win super tournaments or even games in classical chess in super tournaments. So he probably got into his own head a little bit. Therefore, currently, he is his own worst enemy. And if you're not at your best at this level, then all these guys, so Caruana, you name them, they're all very, very dangerous opponents. Kramnik, of course. And I'm not sure if Wei Yi is at that level yet, but maybe Wei Yi in a couple of years as well. But I still think, and I might be biased because I worked for the guy, together with Maxime actually, I still think that Carlsen is clearly the best player. And if he gets his S together, then it will still take a long time for people to catch up. MVL, not a happy camper here. But he doesn't really have a choice. Just take it. Fedoseev played the move I've been gunning for as well. Knight d8. Looks a little passive, but as a human, humanly speaking, as Peter Lako likes to say, you want to add extra cover to your two weaknesses here. Then you want to cast and go h6 without being worried that some devastating sacrifice will hit you. I think Fedoseev is perfectly fine. Rook a4 looks natural, taking the pawn, defending this. Then, I don't know, can we castle immediately or are we getting checkmate after knight h7? Computer, what say you? Computer says don't castle because then queen d3 is unpleasant. You have to go g6 and you don't want to, even this g6. Don't think it's a big deal. Even this looks fine for black to me. But Compboy says go bishop e7 first. Chase the knight away. And you're fine. Queen h5. Doesn't work. Oh, this is a nasty tactic. Or theme to keep in mind. Queen c6. Bit of an unpleasant double attack. Checkmate and rookmate. Not going to be able to do it. Therefore, if you have to remove your knight, whatever, let's say knight e4. I keep blundering rooks. Poor rooks. LPDO. Loose pieces drop off. Okay, third try. Knight f3. Not losing a rook, stopping queen c6. But now we can just castle. Black's perfectly fine. So rook takes a4 does not seem so scary. Can also go here, trying to stop black from castling. That's also not that scary. No, Fedoseev is fine. Fedoseev. That's the level of puns you can expect all week. I have to leave you guys alone soon, as I've mentioned today. Is Commentarios Interruptus, because I'm going to my dad's 70th birthday party. But before I do that, we will tour the 4 boards, where it looks like I get all my predictions wrong as usual. MVL is not going to win this after de6. Radek has a choice between queen e6. When he's a pawn up, but I had the feeling after queen c2, trying to bring the knight, that white actually has full compensation here. Controlling all these squares should be perfectly fine for white. Therefore, the critical line is probably this stuff. When it seemed like white was barely, but surely, hanging in there after knight e3. And should make a draw. Barely, though. Instead, queen e6, queen c2 has been played already. Now, yeah, I don't even think white is... Is that too strong a statement? I was going to say I don't even think white is worse. But... I don't think he's much worse. And I think MVL should hold this comfortably. I've been a fan of Fedoseev's position for a while now. Rook takes a4 seemed like a mistake because you're opening yourself up to all these tactics. Therefore, bishop d3 looks like a better move. Targeting h7, trying to create some momentum. But still, after h6, it seems like black should stabilize sooner or later castle. And the question will be, is black better or is this just equal? Therefore, so far, Fedoseev doing well against Monsieur Kramnik. This I've just talked about. Black is slightly better. Sooner or later, knight c4 or knight d3 will be a threat, which should cost white his light square bishop. Then white will have to be precise to hold that position. But Wang Yue is a bit of an expert in being precise to hold slightly worse positions. So I would bet most of my bitcoins, if I had any, should have trusted those tech nerds some years ago. If I had any bitcoins, I would bet most of them on a draw. In Nisipiano, Bluebaum c4 was played, allowing Bluebaum to get rid of the bishops with bishop a6, or so I'm guessing at least. b3 we don't want because of dc4, and black is fine. And after, let's say, rook ac1, black could develop very, very quickly with something like this. So I'm guessing after bishop a6, the best move is cd5, when Nisi has a small but existing advantage. I have a feeling that Bluebaum should still equalize, maybe here. This is a good move. And yes, it's the computer move. Big surprise. Long castles. When Bluebaum should survive because of his activity. Maybe c4 wasn't ideal. White slightly better, but black should be able to hold this. That's it already for today. I understand. It's not a full show. And I'm very sorry for that. But tomorrow, I promise, I shouldn't promise that. But tomorrow I'll be here for longer, at least. I was gonna say till all the games are over, but let's say till the interesting games are over. I'll put on the Sunday Fun Day long shift. Now I will go congratulate my father who turns 70 today and leave the Dortmund Sparkassen chess meeting alone. Tomorrow is still a free show with just yours truly. Then starting with round number 3, I'll be joined by Lauren Strand and hopefully Peter Svidler remotely and whatever else. Whatever other star guests we can find. But it will be a premium show. So take your chance. Go premium now. If you go for the annual premium, you will get one of these fantastic mugs signed by somebody. What else could you hope for? Probably it's even gonna be a clean one without the stuff in there. Even though I would have to check that. So don't get mad at me if you get an angry mug. We don't want an angry mob claiming that they got angry mugs. That's it for today. Thank you guys for watching. Of course, keep enjoying the games on the Chess24 website. Sorry, I have to leave you alone. It will never happen again, because I know that you people can't function without me. That's been the show. Thank you so much for watching. See you soon.